let's just check one thing because, Jon Jones just had surgery, so it's possible that he might have been on some drugs. What time did he send this tweet? 1:32 a.m. Oh, drugs and tweeting. I'm telling you, dude, drugs and tweeting are not necessarily going to represent you in your best way. Now, I think Jon Jones did pretty good here, but I would say it's fair to say that if he's tweeting at 1:30 a.m. A day or two after someone did surgery on his elbow, he might have been pretty deep on some painkillers. The second that Michael Bisping entertains Brock Lesnar coming back for UFC 300, that means we can all entertain Brock Lesnar coming back to fight Tom Aspinall at UFC 300. So if any of you guys ever had a time when you were working on a project and some catastrophe happened and you had to do the entire amount of work over again, I'll give you an example. The worst one that ever happened to me was when I was in college and I wrote an 11-page paper, which may not sound like a lot to some of you graduate students, but to me as an undergrad who was only going to school to like check the box so I could be in a fraternity and live that life, an 11-page paper was an enormous amount of work. And I wrote 11 pages, woke up at like 4 a.m, was took me 7 hours, and then my computer froze. And this is back in, when, computers would freeze. And I lost the entire paper, all of it, the entire thing. I went outside and I broke a bunch of stuff because I was a child. And then I went in and did a much worse job writing it super fast, and I got an F. I got an F on that paper. And I bring that up because I recorded this entire video before realizing when I went to edit it that there was no sound because I forgot to hit the button on my microphone to turn that on. And so I wasted 17 minutes of fire content. And, this is what kind of channel this is. I'll just lay that on you right out of the gate. So that's what kind of mood I'm in. So if I look like I'm kind of aggravated, it's because I'm saying all the same things over again. And I'm not aggravated at you guys. I love all of you guys. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, because you know what happened today? They had an exchange on Twitter that I found to be amazing, because finally Jon Jones is standing up for himself when Tom Aspinall is attacking his character and whether or not he's a real champion. It's interesting that it happens the day after Jon Jones had another surgery, almost like Jon Jones is kind of feeling the heat, like, okay, maybe this really is my last fight, and I don't want, he can't just pump me around. And so yeah, they went back and forth and they had very different approaches. Jon Jones went like, get my balls out, show mouth, Tom Aspinall. Hey, Jesse, did you really just talk for a minute at the beginning of this so that when you started talking about this, you could immediately talk about people teabagging each other? I did. True story. It's 100% true what happened, but I have to be very careful about what I talk about for the first minute. So now we can say whatever we want. So yeah, Jon Jones was like, my balls are all up in your mouth, Tom Aspinall. But then Aspinall responded with absolute nuclear fire. Anyway, they went back and forth, and Jon Jones admitted that he's scared to fight Tom Aspinall. And I was like, wow, that is a really serious admission. He literally he's a heavyweight champion of the world. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to fight you because you're too good. He said, I'm not going to fight you because you're too good. That is what he said. That is what I heard. That is what he said as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to do a detailed analysis of the back and forth between Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones. And I'm very curious what you guys think. If you think that Jon Jones just admitted that he's afraid to fight maybe not afraid, but he's not going to fight him because he thinks he'll lose, because that is basically exactly what he said. So I'm curious if you guys agree with that. Also, we're going to start off with this right here though. Okay. So this back and forth I just went on Twitter because I was going to go get the Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall stuff. And I stumbled on this particular clip where Anthony and Mike Bisping talk about whether or not Jim Miller would beat Brock Lesnar in a fight. And then before I even posted this video, I saw that this was a conversation that started because Bisping was predicting that maybe they're going to do Tom Aspinall against Brock Lesnar at UFC 300. And so I had to come back and record this and give you my thoughts on that, obviously. And now we get to the main event, which is Bones Jones and Tom Aspinall going back and forth. And I'm going to show you this whole thing. And I'm going to show you what some of the Twitter users responded with, because I think some people made some excellent points. So let's look at it. What on earth just happened to that? What's going on there? Let's fix it like that. So Jon Jones started off with only 4 recognizable opponents and already the King of England. Must be nice. There will be legendary tales told about you and your infamous callouts. And then he said, then someone responded, he's done all that he can do. You can't blame him for being frustrated. And Johnny Bones Jones says, I mean, it doesn't really work like that. I was a champion when I was 23 years old. You can't show up at age 30 pretending like you've been chasing me your whole life. I have no clue who 90% of his resume is. Meanwhile, I've been highlighting UFC career events my entire life. Both true statements, right? But then let's move over here. So Tom Aspinall, in response, I think Tom Aspinall had actually, and then I'm going to show you something very important to note on this, by the way. So Tom Aspinall said, Jon Jones, you need to go fight people who build your legacy. Me, great idea, absolutely. UFC, do you want to fight Tom? Stipe, no. John, no. And in response to Jon Jones's tweet, he said, John, you're letting your ego run wild here, mate. I'm not downplaying your resume. It's incredible. Far superior to mine. You are known as the best fighter ever, and that's exactly why I want to beat you. Surely you can understand that. I love that response. I love it. And then you have this, okay? This is what I alluded to. Jon Jones says, what I refuse to do is be like a lot of these other fighters who stuck around too long. That just won't happen. Your boy Bones Jones over here, despite what a lot of people may like to think, I've set myself up pretty well in life. I want Stipe for my resume. Outside of that, I need nothing else for the sport. I came, I saw, I conquered. Facts. That's true. That's true. But that is a direct, absolutely direct opposing comment to what the UFC always says about what the championship belt represents in UFC, period. They always say, we put the best against the best. They sink or swim. Whoever has the belt is the best fighter in the world at that weight class. Jon Jones, if anybody has earned the ability to do what he's doing, which is not fight a much scarier opponent, as you know, take a bigger paycheck for a guy that's much more beatable, it's him. He has earned that. He's the greatest of all time. I would not argue that at all. But, you know, which of these two fights is an easier fight? On paper, a 43-year-old, I don't need to say anything else. Okay, like nothing, I don't need to say a single other thing. A 43-year-old, the end, or Tom Aspinall, who has only lost once when he hurt himself throwing a kick. And everyone else has gotten worked. Not like, you know, not close, worked. Okay, obviously Tom Aspinall is a scarier fight. So, if Jon Jones never said anything about this, if he never mentioned, you know, like, oh, I don't want to stay around too long or whatever, it's just, but like this comment right here is like, I just want to fight Stipe for my resume, and outside of that, I need nothing else from the sport. It's going to be my retirement fight, whatever. Look, it doesn't really matter. It's all talk. It's analyst nonsense that doesn't really matter. I mean, Jon Jones is the greatest to have ever done it. I don't think that's, I mean, you could argue George St. Pierre, but you take the juice pops out, okay? Take the juice pops out. That's it, right? George St. Pierre won a belt at 2 different weight classes. He got a win over Bisping at 85. You know, Jon Jones got a win over, what's his name? Cyril Gane at heavyweight, a very, very easy one. But listen, dude, is Jon Jones retiring as the best heavyweight in the world the way that like Amanda Nunes did? TBD, dude. Well, not TBD. We're not going to TBD. We're not going to determine it, right? I just honestly, you want to know what prompted this video more than anything? Was this one, dude. I really thought that this was such a great comeback, dude. You know, just be like, John, you're letting your ego, John, you're letting your ego run wild here, mate. I'm not downplaying your resume. It's incredible, far superior to mine. Okay, that just takes all the air out of any future trash talk about resumes. He's like, I agree with you. He's like, well, what? It's like, I agree with you, you know? Far superior to mine. You are known as the best fighter. That's exactly why I want to beat you. Surely you can understand that. He's like, do you not relate to this or what? And John then, in response, says, I'm not going to fight you because I just want to fight Stipe and get out of here. Do you know what I mean? If you look at it like that, if you look at how those comments go back and forth, I don't know how you don't read this as Jon Jones being like, I would rather take the easier fight for my resume because he's got a big name and you're a much tougher fight that I'm not going to take. That's the only way I can read it. And again, Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time in my book, period. He just is, man. He just is. So I'm not hating on him at all. But I don't know how you read this comment any differently than that. You know what I mean? How do you read this any other way than I do not want to fight you because you're a much tougher fight? Which brings us to the Brock Lesnar portion of this video. Now, I'm going to give you two major factors in considering whether there is any scenario where Brock Lesnar does come back and fight Tom Aspinall, because it, at first glance, looks impossible, except for one major development, an enormous development, right? So here's what that is. And just spoiler, the next portion of this video is Anthony Smith saying that he thinks Jim Miller beats Brock Lesnar in a street fight. I don't agree. Bisping doesn't agree. But it's funny nonetheless, and it's a great conversation. You guys can watch that in a second. But here is the factor to consider with Brock Lesnar. Now, if you go back to 2018, when DC beat Stipe the first time, and it was like, oh my God, now DC just stole the Brock Lesnar fight from Stipe, and, you know, it was soul-crushing for Stipe, blah, blah. And then it took like 18 months or whatever, where it was like, when is Brock coming back? When is Brock coming back? DC's waiting for Brock. DC's waiting for Brock. DC's waiting for Brock. Blah, 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 blah. Brock Lesnar pushed DC, all that stuff. Remember? So the reason that wasn't happening is because Brock Lesnar was trying to get off juice and then get his system back to where he could compete at a high level, and he couldn't do it, right? He had been on gear for too long. He tried to shock his system back into, and it wouldn't work. Like, he was like, I can't make this work. You know, I am not going to be able to compete without juice. He'd been on juice for too long, right? So that is a reason to think there is absolutely no chance in a million years that he would be able to come back for UFC 300 and fight against Tom Aspinall. Obviously, that would be right? Like, why, if he couldn't get off juice in 2018, why would he be able to get off juice in 2024? Okay? Answer. Who was doing the testing in 2019, 2018, whatever? I think it was USADA, right? Who's going to be doing the testing now? Oh, it's someone else. The answer is it's someone else. So, I'm just saying, if the blocker before was you have to get off juice, and now USADA is out of the, USADA's not around anymore, that makes it possible. Do I think it's likely? No. But is it possible? Yes. And that's why. Now let's get into the fun part where Anthony says Jim Miller beats Brock, or might beat Brock Lesnar in a street fight or whatever, because it's a hilarious conversation, and I am extraordinarily excited for him to call me and tell me that I'm an idiot, because that's going to be my favorite part about this entire thing. A street fight or a sanctioned bout. And I found this conversation, I can't tell if Anthony's trolling or serious, and I am very curious what you guys think as it relates to their opinions on this, because I'm just like, honestly, I don't know if he's trolling. I will give you my opinion on, I'll give you my opinion, right? And basically that's what's going to happen, because Anthony said that Jim Miller beats Brock Lesnar in a street fight. And if, let's say hypothetically, I was going to disagree with him, I'm going to tell you why I would disagree with him, and also why my opinion might be more educated, and it has to do with Anthony being enormous and never feeling someone that much stronger throw him around, because no one on earth has the size and strength advantage that Brock Lesnar has over Jim Miller to Anthony Smith. He's too big, he's too strong, and he's too good. I, on the other hand, have felt what it's like to get tossed around by someone of similar skill, but that size and strength advantage very recently, actually. So we'll talk about that. And that is where we're going to start today. Now, before we do, I wanted to say thank you to all of you guys yesterday who subscribed. I was like, look, I'm trying to hit 137,000. I needed about 60, and I got 200. I love you guys. Thank you very much. I am a slave to the analytics in terms of my mood. So thank you guys. If you have not subscribed yet, I would appreciate it if you guys would do that. Join this thriving community of people that I consider my BFFs. And also, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, Yo Kratom. Just signed up for another year on this channel. I love these guys, man. Yo Kratom is an incredible source for bulk kratom on the internet. $60 kilograms. You will never find a price like that. It is where I get my bulk kratom. It gets here in 2 days. Like Amazon, they're an incredible partner, and I am proud to have them on. YoKratom.com. Give them a look. They have all of the strains. Let's go. Now, as advertised, we are going to start here with Anthony and Michael Bisping discussing who would win in a fight between Brock Lesnar and Jim Miller. Let's listen. Bam.
How many Jim Millers could Brock Lesnar beat? Not many.
Not two.
Not two. No.
1.25.
One, maybe. If Jim gets a hold of a neck or something.
Listen, I love Jim Miller, but Brock Lesnar could beat Jim Miller.
Maybe. That's what, I think that's a 50-50. If Brock Lesnar lands big, Jim Miller goes to sleep and dies.
You're going to take $50,000 on your bank account and you're going to bet it on Jim Miller or Brock Lesnar. You're putting it on Brock Lesnar all day long.
I'm not sure I would.
You're out of your mind. And listen, I love Jim Miller.
And maybe I have so much love for Jim Miller that I can't imagine him not catching Brock Lesnar in a submission. That guy's nasty on the ground.
On the street.
Definitely Jim Miller on the street.
I love that, dude. Okay, so here are my thoughts on that, right? So when Anthony said, okay, so the original question is how many Jim Millers could Brock Lesnar beat? I do agree that if you throw 2 Jim Millers on Brock Lesnar, he's not beating 2 of them, right? I do agree with that because Jim Miller's so nasty and he's so smart. He'll, secure his legs with one of them and then the other one will go to work getting ready to either choke him or take an arm or whatever. I agree with that. But as soon as you go down to one-on-one, now we're having a very different conversation because at one-on-one, it's not like Brock Lesnar is just some big hunk of muscle, dude. The guy was a superstar, national champion D1 wrestler, right? A D1 national champion wrestler. That's why when, as an example, right? And I realize that Brock Lesnar is no longer fighting. He is not, he's also he's on gear again. He's probably not even that much worse than he was when he fought Mark Hunt because he's geared out of his gourd again, right? So I remember when Randy Couture was going to fight Brock Lesnar back in the day and everyone was like, oh my God, Randy is going to mop him. And I was like, you guys are out of your goddamn minds, dude. You're crazy. Yes. You got an Olympic wrestler, stud. But we're going wrestler for wrestler. This dude's 60 pounds of sheer muscle and he moves like a cat, bigger than Randy. How's Randy going to win? And then Brock won and I was like, okay, so if we're talking about ground game, it's like, dude, there is an amount of size and strength that you cannot overcome even if your skill is higher if they are also good. And Brock's not just good, he's really good. So I go Brock all day. Now, again, as I alluded to, Anthony is too big, too strong, and way too good to know what it would feel like to face a dude that's that much. Actually, good. So, there's just no one that is good enough to match kind of skill who's, this dude would have to be 500 pounds, literally, for a comparable situation between Anthony and this imaginary person. The dude would have to be 450 pounds and be fast as lightning and also a former D1, national champion. I don't think that exists, dude. So the thing I alluded to is at my school, there's a dude named who is an NFL. I don't care. I'll just throw it out there. His name's Jon. He's an offensive lineman in the NFL, for many, 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 many years. He's all the professionals at my school's strength and conditioning coach, and now he does jiu-jitsu. He's been doing it for a couple years. He's he's been doing it for a couple years. And so he and I train together sometimes, right? And I've been doing jiu-jitsu longer than him. I don't think he would argue that my jiu-jitsu is better than his, but not, by an enormous amount, but by enough that when we are just doing jiu-jitsu, I would get the better of him, right? So one day I mentioned that I was 195 pounds, right? I just mentioned I was 195. This guy was 330 pounds when he was in the NFL. And one time, so I put him in this position where I don't even remember. I think I was he was on his side and I was kind of in side control. And he literally picked me up and he threw me across the room like I was a fucking Raggedy Ann doll. And I think it was just so we're clear, guy. You might be able to get the better of me if we're just doing jiu-jitsu, but if I decided to use any amount of my strength, you lose very, very easily. And that was a lesson that I learned. I was like, all right. So I might have a small jiu-jitsu edge, but he literally threw me. I'm fucking solid, dude. I'm between 195 and 200 pounds, generally speaking, I'm built solid, dude. Like, people don't just fucking throw me around like that. He threw me like I did not exist. And I just laughed. Like, I literally laughed. I was like, Jesus, dude. Brock is, you know what I mean? NFL offensive lineman, 330 pounds. That's Brock Lesnar, dude. I'm not saying I'm as good as Jim Miller, but I'm also 50 pounds bigger than Jim Miller. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm injecting myself too much into this, but I personally can't see it. He's too fucking big, dude. Brock is huge, and he's juiced out of his fucking mind. Maybe if he had to get off gear again, who knows? But he doesn't even have a neck, man. Who's going to choke him? Jim Miller with his arms that are like shorter than mine, or he's going to choke Brock Lesnar? He has no neck. I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting conversation. You guys tell me what you think. I know Anthony's going to call me and be like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I can't really argue with him, but I would bet on Brock in a one-on-one fight personally. Now, another exciting fight that I heard about today, a big leaked fight that no one knows about yet, is Rose Namajunas coming back, son, 125 against Amanda Ribas. I am not sure if I could say anything else, so I'm not going to, but that fight is definitely in the works. And that is very exciting because if you go watch that last Rose fight again, dude, she looked good. She fought the biggest girl at 125, biggest, strongest girl at 125 and looked like a boss. She is and will always be my best favorite female fighter forever. So I'm excited every single time she fights. And Amanda Ribas, that's a great fight, dude. It's a really exciting fight. You know, that matchup is great. I love Rose on the feet in that matchup, and but Amanda Ribas is nasty on the ground. I mean, Rose is obviously nasty on the ground, so Ribas is strong. I don't know. I'm excited about that. It's going to be on a fight night, as I understand it. So that's a big fight for a fight night, man. All right, now I got to show you this post from Spinning Backfist. Dude, Spinning Backfist is hitting grand slams today. Look at this post in response to Ian Gary writing the script. Well, I mean, I don't think he wrote it, but reading the script on Ariel's show. Watch this. This is so funny. It says what Ian Gary thought he looked like. Oh my God. I don't know why I think that is so funny, dude. It's like, there's something about that. It's like, Ian thought that was like the most fire line ever. He's all, make sure I hit this word for word. He's all, maybe tell Sean Strickland I'll fight him and I'll beat him so bad he won't even remember that childhood trauma. It's like, damn. He burned the house down with that fire, son. It's so fucking ridiculous, dude. Kudos to whoever at Spinning Backfist put that meme up, because that's what that is. That meme is that post, dude. And so with that, I leave you for the day. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I love you guys very much. I don't know, I'll probably find some other video to do a video about today because it's a special day. I'm not going to tell you why, but it's a very special day in my household. So, but you'll find out soon. I'll announce it soon. Love all you guys. Subscribe, ring the bell, like the video. Peace.